back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. I'm Joel Schmitz, accompanied by James Jackson, Jake Galley, and crunching numbers in the back, we've got Stat Matt. This past week in sports, the English Premier League season began. Charlie Manuel was hired as the Phillies hitting coach, Jake Arrieta to have season-ending surgery on his throwing elbow, and Serena Williams withdraws from Rogers Cup due to back spasms. Here's a fact, straight at you. Antonio Brown has 6 straight seasons of 1,200-plus yards, but does his drama make him a liability as a player?
Not as a player, but
as a player.
Here's what it makes it a liability as a leader on your team. And this is it's funny because you look back through Antonio's entire career, up until 2-ish years ago, 3-ish years ago, he was the headliner, non-Devo receiver. Totally, he was a 6th-rounder, worked his way up. A very level-headed guy. And then something snapped.
Well, the money.
Right. I guess he started getting
accolades,
started getting money in his bank account. And now he's one of the crazier humans, not only in the NFL, but in the total public pop culture lexicon.
But to your point, was he ever known as a leader, quote unquote? If you had to pick a leader on those Steelers teams, it was undoubtedly Ben Roethlisberger or Mike Tomlin.
Or Troy Polamalu. That's the thing. There's so many guys to choose from when you're on Pittsburgh because it's such an established franchise. And now you go to historic train wreck of a franchise, the Oakland Raiders, and he's fitting in as if
seamlessly.
As if it was like this his entire career. It's been really bizarre the way.
Okay, bizarre is the only way to really explain it, and let's do our best to try to really explain.
Yeah, why don't you break it down
for those people who don't know exactly what's going on with Antonio Brown? First, it was the whole incident with his, him getting frostbite on his feet. So about a month ago, he went to France to do cryotherapy. It's how it's pronounced.
That's correct.
Cryotherapy and get in a machine. Kind of rejuvenate your body, gets all the toxins out and everything. He didn't wear the proper proper footwear. Didn't protect his feet well enough. And when he entered the machine, the machine left his feet frostbitten. And it got so bad that it actually burnt the bottoms of his feet off.
If you've ever seen it, look at it. It's gross.
There's a picture of it. He posted a picture of it on Instagram. Go to his Instagram, and there's literally skin coming off the bottom of his feet to the point where he couldn't walk. He literally just couldn't walk.
Play, right?
He couldn't play. Couldn't do anything. It was gross. It was nasty. That is more excusable to me than the whole helmet saga. Why don't you break down the helmet saga?
Do you think that the whole helmet issue is spiraling because that's what he wants? He wants to take the attention off of the whole feet issue?
That's a good point.
And he's
a little embarrassed, maybe.
Right.
It's not only embarrassing, but also when you talk about just in the workplace, if he were to miss games because of this injury, obviously if you get injured on a cut in camp, it's way different than if he's going and doing cryotherapy in France or on a motorbike in the off-season and hurts himself. That's on him. Right. So they could dock his pay, and he gets paid a lot of money per game. I don't have the exact breakdown here, but
just know it's a lot of money.
If it could be a diversion because he dropped it pretty easily. And when you take a look at that entire saga, it starts in the beginning of camp. Antonio Brown has worn the same helmet his entire career pretty much. He's worn the same model, which is the Shoot Air Advantage. He wore the Shutter XP Advantage. I'm not a football player. I don't know that there's obviously a little difference between models. So he wants to wear this model, the same model that Aaron Rodgers, Alvin Kamara, Tom Brady, multiple other people in the NFL have worn. But this was the year that the NFL said, "Look, you got to kick it." Yeah, it's outlawed. You can't wear it anymore.
It's unsafe. And to that same point, Tom Brady actually came out and said, "I agree, or I understand where Antonio Brown is coming from. I don't like that I have to change my helmet. I've worn the same helmet." And in both cases, they're parallel because in both careers, they've worn the helmet that they want to and had Hall of Fame careers up until this point. The difference is Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Alvin Kamara, and others said, "Man, this sucks, gee willikers, but I'm going to change my helmet." That's the rule.
So
that's what it has to be.
On the timeline, he comes into camp. He wants his old helmet. They don't have it. It's banned, Antonio. We don't have it. And he says, "Well, why is Brady and Rodgers and the guys who we said, why are they still wearing it?" Storms out. The team officials text Antonio pictures in practice of Brady and Rodgers without that helmet on. He comes back the next day, takes the new helmet, completes the workout. Nothing's wrong. Then, a few days later, comes into camp, and Antonio has his old Shutter XP, shut XP, advantage on.
And did you figure out did you hear how he got it?
He colored it with like magic markers.
He did it himself.
So yeah, he did it himself. He literally crossed out and like stencil drew a Raiders logo on it and put black magic marker on it.
Like no one would notice.
Like a little kid.
If you are a multi-millionaire and you find yourself hunched over a helmet with a magic marker, in that moment you need to take a step back and be like, okay, I might be in the wrong.
And he's got 2 sons, which is hilarious. So imagine him. This is what I'm picturing. Antonio Brown downstairs in his basement. His basement is pitch black. He's got one desk lamp over his helmet.
2 a.m.
They'll never notice. They'll never notice. And then his kids come downstairs. Daddy, what are you doing? Like, why are you coloring this helmet? What's going on?
But so he comes into camp with a colored helmet that he did himself. It's not the same as the other ones. They take it from him. They say you can't do this, and they send him home. And then so this is actually before the frozen feet stuff take him out. Then he takes it out.
That's happened a minute ago.
Right. Then the frozen feet stuff happened. Takes him out, and he finally says, "Look, I'm not playing ever again unless I get my helmet." Possibly one of the craziest things ever done.
That is a tantrum. That is a tantrum. That's
this is the problem that lies with me, because he told the NFL that he's going to hold them liable if he does get hurt during the season wearing their helmet, which everyone else is already wearing. It's known as causation in legal terms. Basically, how's he going to prove if he does get hurt that he wouldn't have gotten hurt if he was wearing his helmet? Like, he could get hurt doing both things. So it's like, dude, just show up and wear the frickin' helmet.
When you're a sociopath, Jewel, this is not something that comes into your mind.
Right.
But so regardless, this actually all played out within a week. They went to an arbitrator who said that you have to wear the helmet that and also it's not just one helmet. He has over 20 helmets to pick from of the new models.
And his helmet was not the only helmet that was outlawed this year.
Right.
He's acting like there was about, I think, 10 to 15 helmets that were outlawed, and the company that makes the helmet that he wants to wear, 3 of those helmets are outlawed. They make 5 helmets. 3 of the 5 shoot helmets are outlawed. So, like, probably should just go to a different helmet. Just go to another different model altogether, my man.
That is what he said he was going to do after the arbitrator banned him from wearing that helmet, settled the grievance. He said, fine, I can't wait to be with my teammates, just like nothing happened. So it almost is like he is using this as a big flare-up to divert from the fact that he froze his feet off. But it just comes off as like a really bad look on a team that's on Hard Knocks too.
It's on national TV. He hasn't been on it.
TV. He's been very sparing amounts. He's been on it, but like, I don't know, like he's acting like the helmet.
He's like trying to be an outcast. It's like, dude, start a clothing line if you want to like have your own like ego out there.
Right,
like, it just like don't take it onto the field. It's like very odd to me.
Especially to a player who's looking for a fresh start, for a team who's looking to restart and rejuvenate their franchise, a head coach in his second year. You know, their starting running back's going to be a draft pick. They got a lot of new and fresh things going on. Like, if I'm Antonio Brown, and this is probably what, if I'm Mike Mayock or John Gruden, what I'm trying to tell him is, dude, this is... Everybody here is looking for a clean slate, a fresh start, and all you're doing is putting a blemish on your clean slate to start. Before you even took the football field, you're making everybody pissed off.
Do you think John Gruden, before he decided to defend him, do you think at first he was like, what the hell do we get ourselves into?
No, that's my point, is I think that John Gruden and Mike Mayock both knew, bro, we're going to go get Antonio Brown. And one of them said to the other, or one of them said to their team, he's going to come in with drama. It's Antonio Brown. We can either anticipate that and either be relieved when it doesn't happen or not be shocked when it does happen, or we can go and say, no, he's going to come in as a straight arrow and he's not going to do anything wrong. And now we're beside ourselves when Antonio Brown does Antonio Brown.
And we've seen when you set that hard line of like, look, we're not going to tolerate this from star receivers. I don't care how good you are. You're going to act like this, that, and the other. You get an Odell Beckham situation where he is now in Cleveland because New York, and I will put it more on the New York media. From what I've read and from what I've seen, his teammates didn't really have a problem with the way he acted. It's more front office and the media in New York, which can
They're also losing. But Odell did that on a winning team.
Look, speaking of teammates, though, don't you think that in the Raiders locker room, some of the other players are thinking, wow, like, would he, like, Gruden back them if they were to pull this shit and see how far they could get with it.
You're not the best receiver in the NFL.
They're going to push their limits to see. They'll be like...
Which is, and by the way, when you look around, look at the teams who have a lot of success. And the model that no one else has really been able to replicate for a couple of reasons is the Patriots. No one is doing that on the Patriots.
And if they do, the first time that they do, you're going.
Right. It doesn't matter. He sat Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl.
He sat Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl. Randy Moss and Tom Brady broke damn near every quarterback receiver record combination there was. Randy Moss caused the headache. He said, "You're going. Like, I don't care who you are."
But can you guys give me your point of view on John Gruden's actual words? Because when I listened to what he said it's not his fault, blah 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 blah. Well, yes, it is his fault for him to, one, position himself like that, and two, nobody coerced you to get in that machine to do that. I get shit happens, but take ownership of that.
Look at it from Gruden's point of view, though. What is he going to say? He just got this brand new guy on his team.
He's got to back him.
If you go ahead and blast Antonio, and Antonio goes back with I don't need football. Oh, I can walk away from the game whenever I want.
You wasted so much money.
It looks bad on them if they don't keep him. Yeah.
You wasted so much money, and John Gruden cannot be surprised by anything. John Gruden sat in the booth for 4 some odd years doing as an analyst and watched Antonio Brown objectively from afar. And I bet if we go back and look at some John Gruden sound bites, he has probably some choice things to say about Antonio Brown sometimes, as pretty much every analyst did.
Well, on the field, he's perfect. On the field, you cannot say a bad thing.
And I think that's what John Gruden's. But John Gruden's probably telling a lot of people to do. Just wait till he gets between the white lines. If he gets between the white lines and he's a shell of himself and he's not doing anything, then we can go yell at Antonio Brown. But if he goes and produces, maybe we can kind of push a lot of under the rug. We got to sweep him under the rug.
But the point is, the drama in general is taken away from their productivity for the preseason. So regardless, it's an issue that doesn't even need to be happening.
It hurts the chemistry, but Antonio Brown, skill-wise, is not a player who needs the preseason. He does plenty of good work on his own. He's got great skills.
But it's affecting the other players.
Right, he needs the chemistry with Derek Carr, who's not the greatest quarterback in the world, so to establish that chemistry is good.
And just for what it's worth, I was listening to a podcast with Robert Mays, who covers the NFL, and he said, he's going around doing his rounds in training camp, and the one thing, the biggest conversation in the locker room between all the places that he's been at has been a roasting of AB in all the locker rooms. Anywhere he's gone, they've been roasting AB because the podcast was recorded and it was all happening while he was in these locker rooms. So at least other NFL players have a good head on their shoulder. Julio Jones, I saw, said, here, you could give me a medium or a large. I'll go out there and play. It doesn't matter. That's the type of receiver who I want, but that might just be me.
Well, speaking of Julio Jones, he averaged 2.5 catches for less than 40 yards per game in his preseason. How much do rookie performances matter in the preseason, and which rookie had the best week 1?
Here's what I will say about the preseason. Do rookie performances matter? I mean, obviously, especially for high-level draft picks, because you're really hardcore evaluating these players that you spent a first or second and early third round pick on. But it's not the end-all be-all. I mean, there's so many examples of, he didn't look that great in the preseason, even looked that great early in his rookie season, and he's a great player now. But there are some rookies that stood out in week 1 of preseason.
Yeah, and I think two of the guys play the same position and are on the San Francisco 49ers who, look, between Deebo Samuel, who was drafted in the 2nd round, and Jalen Hurd, who was drafted in the 3rd round, there's a ton of intrigue, if I'm a casual NFL fan, in those two guys going forward. And they're pretty polar opposites. When you look at Samuel, he was drafted a little bit higher, and he is a guy who is probably the best NFL-ready route runner out of all of the guys taken in the draft. They all have kind of a different skill. Marquise Brown was super, super fast. You have N'Keal Harry, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who has had a little bit of an underwhelming preseason so far, but he's a guy who can go up and catch the ball. One game, exactly. Deebo Samuel, very intriguing. He had a decent week. And then who I'm really excited about, and I've had my eye on, is Jalen Hurd. He's 6'5".
Converted from running back into a receiver.
So, which is why he fell to the 3rd round, because he's not exactly fine-tuned in these receiving, catching, route running, that type stuff. But when you look at his overall physique, he's 6'4". He had 2 touchdowns in the preseason debut. Granted, it's preseason, but when you take a look at that offense, you have George Kittle, and then between the receivers, Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd could very well end up as the number 1 and 2 guys there this year.
I mean, it's really dependent on how Jimmy Garoppolo comes back. We're going to see him for the first time in this week 2 stretch of preseason games First time since tearing his ACL last season, which even before tearing his ACL didn't look like the Jimmy Garoppolo who went 7-0 and then got that contract. So I think that's going to be, especially for two rookie receivers, on a team that doesn't have a good defense at all, a team that's pretty bad.
They're going to be throwing.
They're going to be throwing a lot.
Yeah.
So that's really going to be dependent. Another guy who looked really good is Jacoby Myers. In his first game, six receptions, 69 yards against the Detroit Lions. Coming out of NC State, he's right now outplaying fellow rookie N'Keal Harry over there with the New England Patriots, and he's already reportedly having a very strong connection with Tom Brady, which that might be the best person in the NFL to establish a good connection with. You establish a good connection with Brady, not only are you getting 15 targets a game, you're getting 15 targets in very effective ways.
Like, that is, if you listen to Julian Edelman had a behind-the-scenes look, I think, at like his entire football life with his family, and he would, before he was big, well-known Julian Edelman, would fly out, and anytime Brady needed a receiver, he would get in on that session in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Anytime. Whether it's 1 a.m. time, you need me to come fly across the country for you, I'll do it. That's how and especially with a guy like Tom Brady, he's going to throw the ball to who he knows is going to execute. That's what the Patriots are all about, is execution. So when you're a guy who Tom Brady trusts, especially this early on, I mean, that's like the best compliment you can receive.
And there's a big buy-in right now. There's a big competition on who's going to fill probably that number 2 receiving role, because when Gronk leaves, everyone's going to assume that Julian Edelman's become the undisputed number 1 target right now. But now there's a big buy-in for that number 2 slot. Will it be Chris Hogan? Will it be N'Keal Harry? Will it be Jacoby Myers? Will it be whoever?
James White.
Somebody else. Will it be Sony Michel? Will it be somebody else who's going to come in and take that number 2 spot? And it's really up for grabs. So if you already you're already on Tom Brady's radar, you're already someone who he can trust, who he wants to go to, like that's immensely good for you.
Look, if you're mentioning Tom Brady, somebody who really sticks out to me that kind of is almost following in Tom Brady's footsteps a little bit. Kyler Murray, how do we think he's doing? He's had a superb preseason thus far. Right. As expected, no doubt he's going to be a star in the NBA. Or NBA. NFL, my bad. He started his first drive the other night on the 2-yard line and completed 6 out of 7 of his passes, and realistically making all of them, with one of them being an incompletion because of a penalty. Cardinals fans should be excited right now. It seems like there's going to be a magnetizing presence between himself and the wide receivers.
And what looked really promising to me, if I'm a Cardinals fan, is the fact that Cliff Kingsbury looks to, right now, to not be putting any reins on Kyler Murray. Well, one, why would you?
Right.
Why would you? I mean, you let the kid roam free and get what you paid for. You got the number 1 overall pick. Like, why put any reins on him? Why put any training wheels on him? He's having Kyler Murray make throws rolling out to his left, rolling out to his right, in play action, and shotgun. He put him in every situation you pretty much could have in 6 pass attempts, and Kyler Murray didn't look bad really on any one of them.
He looked really composed, is what he looked like.
Let me ask you
He's got the most security. Who's going to take Kyler Murray's starting job?
Of course not. But if this were 2 years ago, and Baker Mayfield had never had success as a undersized quarterback coming in and having early success, do you think that people would be as optimistic as they are with Kyler Murray?
Russell Wilson.
Well, Russell Wilson's like one of one, dude. It is so hard to beat Russell Wilson.
Well, Russell Wilson paved the way for Baker Mayfield, who paved the way for Kyler Murray.
Exactly, but I'm just saying that I think, and it's also funny because when you look at what the Cardinals are trying to do right now, they're also trying to chase the hot trend of air raid offense, of airing the ball out a ton. They picked a guy who in college didn't have the best record with it. Cliff Kingsbury was a hot name, but didn't necessarily have a ton of success with his teams.
But Cliff Kingsbury coached Pat Mahomes, too.
And that right there, they mentioned it in their press release. Hey, this guy is, he coached Mahomes. He's friends with McVay. He's this, he's that, he's the other. Like, they're chasing the hot thing in the NFL, and their team right now is constructed that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I am super excited beyond the fact that Kyler Murray is the number 1 overall pick. I'm super excited to see how this whole experiment plays out.
I mean, you got pretty much everyone on their team is, all the special, positions are dynamic players. Kyler Murray at the quarterback position, David Johnson at the running back position, who might still have a little bit of a question mark above his head coming back from injury, but he's a beast when he's healthy. Akeem Butler at the wide receiver position. You still have Larry Fitzgerald there to kind of teach everybody. You got Hollywood Brown's on the on the Ravens. I'm sorry.
Andy Isabella is another draft pick for
like they're constructed, like you said, as to be a high tempo,
they're going to be
running
interesting.
gun offense.
They might not be good, but they're going to be interesting.
And it's funny you bring up the Cliff Kingsbury and Sean McVay point, because Sean McVay was the hot commodity last year, and we're talking about paving the way for people. Sean McVay is going to pave the way for a lot of new age style of head coaches.
Well, and that's the thing is that
Cliff Kingsbury is, I think, the first payoff of that.
A lot of times, a couple years ago, they would go with the retread up, bring in John Fox, bring in whoever the most recent
Tom Coughlin,
whoever the most recent
John Gruden, yeah.
Whoever's the most recent fired guy, let's bring him in. Now they're kind of paving the way, going a different direction. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I'm surprised Jim Harbaugh didn't take a stab at the NFL.
He's got a good spot.
I think he would have right now.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the NFL starts fantasy football.
Oh, you're so hyped for that.
Me too.
Fantasy football is a great thing. I'm pretty hyped for it myself. This is an interesting fact. Over the last 7 years, there have been 42 top 6 running backs in fantasy football. None of them were on a team who finished in the bottom half of the league in scoring.
Which paves the question, should you take Saquon Barkley number 1?
Right,
the Giants are probably going to be in the bottom, if not the bottom 5 in
so
in the league.
It's interesting because it's kind of like a clash of fantasy schools of thought. Either you can get a big cog in the machine. Like for me, if I'm looking at offenses, I look at someone like Michael Thomas or someone in terms of wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams is a great example. Good player on a good offense. Guys like Cooper Kupp become more valuable. He's maybe not a number 1 receiver, but he's going to be very productive because his offense is just going to put up more numbers than someone
Jared
who's
Goff
better.
55 times a game.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So when you circle back to Saquon, the other school of thought is you want as much volume as possible, as much opportunity. It's not really the skill of the player or the skill of the offense, it's the amount of opportunities given. And Saquon's going to be in a spot where you look around, other than Evan Engram, who's like the guy who's popping off the page for you?
Nobody.
Well,
Nobody.
I cannot say his name. Ezekiel Elliott sticks out to me as well. I know they're 1 and 2, and they're the very obvious
He's
choices.
another one.
But
He's in a good offensive situation. They'll score some
But
points.
he's a little different because he's got, at least on their team, on the Cowboys, you have receiving options. You have
Right.
Amari
Good
Cooper,
O-line, too.
you have
You're gonna be a
Gallup,
good team.
you have a good team over there. Saquon Barkley is the only good thing happening for the New York Giants right now. Evan Engram, maybe, but Evan Engram is sometimes up and down.
Right, he's
too.
up and down,
the only consistently good thing happening for the Giants, which is good sometimes and it's worrisome because if I'm playing the Giants, like I'm stacking 8 in the box, I'm daring Eli Manning or Daniel Jones to beat me. Like I'm daring that to happen. Saquon Barkley will not beat me. He could touch the ball 25 times a game. That could end up being 60 yards.
Right, but then this is why fantasy is so great because it also swings now. Okay, they're going to be down. They're going to be terrible. They're also not going to care on defense if they're up 30. They're going to let the little Saquon dump off for like 6-7 yards. They're going to let that happen all day.
Right. If
So
you're in a PPR league,
it's great. He's right on PPR. Guys like him and the guys who we're about to talk about are the best options. For what it's worth, Saquon is still the number 1 consensus pick for CBS in all formats.
Right, and we're not saying this as to say you shouldn't take Saquon Barkley. Look, if you're listening to this and you're about to have a fantasy draft come up and you take Saquon Barkley, like very good pick, claps to you. You didn't do anything wrong. All we're saying is maybe take a look at other variables in this equation that has to do with taking the number 1 overall pick. Like there are some things to look at now that the Giants' offense is drastically different than it was last year.
Fantasy has always interested me just because I kind of relate it to like a March Madness. You can, to a degree, strategize, but at the same time, it's kind of just like there's surprises all the time.
That's a very good point. Like,
Yeah.
I can do all the research I want, but at the end of the day,
It's a roulette at the end of the day.
Number 16 might be
Right.
might beat the number 1 when it's all said and done.
Right, and that is the variability when you play fantasy.
That's why fantasy makes my head spin. That's
Yeah,
really
you'll
what-
enjoy it. James, by the way, for the viewers, James has never done fantasy. He's doing it this year. Finally got him in.
My first fantasy football. Look, you guys may not, especially the viewers at home, may not know this about me. I come off very confident. I have a very fragile ego sometimes. So if I go into a fantasy football...
you're a little baby.
Yeah, if I go into a fantasy football and I'm last, like that, you might not hear from me for a little bit. It's like, I don't know if you guys heard about this real quick.
Wait, speaking of which, if I remember, you lost the competition last week. Where is that jersey you promised
yeah,
you were
yeah.
gonna wear?
Well,
That's on me. That's on
You
me.
still
That's on me.
salty?
First of all, I am salty. Second of all, thank you for bringing that up, Joe. I repressed
You're
that
very
memory.
welcome.
No, Joe, that's dang.
Third, that's on
Why
you
did none of us
because you
catch
didn't-
that at the
because
beginning?
you didn't
That's on
bring-
me.
He didn't bring the jersey. But I'm
We're
gonna
here for the NFL preview before.
There we go. We're here for the NFL preview, so
Oh.
you can support the team that will be winning the Super Bowl this
Thank
year.
you, Matt. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Before we move on, real quick, I don't know if you guys heard of this. Jalen Rose is involved in. He came out and reported today. He's involved in like this high stakes celebrity fantasy football league every year. I mean, KD plays in it. Draymond plays in it. It's like a 10K buy-in. Like it's big money. Katie got upset and left. They said, which is like the most
Hilarious.
Katie thing I've ever heard in my life. That's really on brand. But apparently last year LeBron came in last and then left.
Also hilarious.
And my point is, I am LeBron in this situation. Like if I come in last, like, I'm not doing it again. Like you're gonna catch me in it again.
But here's the thing: is that it's not your fault. It's insert player X who underperformed
That's true.
fault.
That's true.
As in Adam Thielen, you still owe me for last year in the playoffs, bro.
All right. Okay. Well then, tell me, Jake. You have the number 1 overall pick.
hmm
Who are you taking?
So, to be honest, I
This
really
isn't starting
do.
well. You don't seem confident.
Well,
in this pick.
because there's really like 4 guys. We talked about 2 of them with Zeke and Saquon. I'm actually going to go with Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
And I just think, and it's funny because him, and I think the guy that you're going to go with were the 2 answers to one of the trivia questions that we had last week. But when you look at, and I'm of the school of thought of, I want to get the guys who are going to give the most opportunities. And there's no one else who's on the field more as a running back than Christian McCaffrey. He was
More as a player.
in terms of running backs, he had 996 snaps. The next closest was Ezekiel Elliott with 895. So less than a 100 snap difference. He catches the ball, he runs the ball, and unlike other guys who catch the ball, he is on a good team where he's really the only option. Like, who else are they going to throw to down there? They have DJ Moore, maybe.
Devin Funchess isn't even there.
Devin
anymore.
Funchess is in there. You got like a decrepit Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
Like, who are you going to throw to?
I
So,
look at Cam Newton, who may not be all that confident going down the field with coming off that shoulder
right, he's
surgery.
a great check down. He has
Yeah.
more yards per touch than Alvin Kamara, who a lot of people compare him to. 6.0 on every touch. Like
Yeah.
that, you're getting great value there.
And I don't know if you've seen pictures of Christian McCaffrey last year to coming into camp this year. Dude is a tank. Like, he's a unit right now. Like, and I think they're going to lean on him a lot.
And the cherry on top of all of this is if you're someone who changes your team name, he presents a phenomenal team name, Run CMC. Instead of Run DMC, you have Run Christian
I
McCaffrey.
get
CMC. Phenomenal. There you go. You're free to use that. That's off the top. But, yeah, I'd have to be going with McCaffrey, I think.
I'm also calling bluff. I don't think you came up with that.
I came
off
up
the
with it.
top.
I
don't-
did.
Not
Am I
off
right?
the top.
Am I right
Not
in?
off right now.
Yes.
That's not off the
Oh,
top.
no, not. I mean,
Your
it
right
was-
hand was like 3 hours
it was
ago. It's
off
not
the
off the top.
at some point in time.
That's funny. Well, I'm going to go with the guy that you compared Christian McCaffrey to, and I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara from the Saints. We're going to stay in the NFC South division here. If I have the number 1 overall pick, I'm going to go with him for a couple of reasons. People are talking about maybe his load is going to increase without Mark Ingram there, and that's going to hurt him. We saw the first 4 games when Mark Ingram was suspended. Alvin Kamara didn't look like the Alvin Kamara we're used to because he was touching the ball so much. Maybe they were overusing him. He wasn't used to being that workhorse. Well, they bring in Latavius Murray to kind of replace Mark Ingram in those short yardage, big bowling ball back type situations. So I think his load pretty much stays the same. And Sean Payton is also a coach where it's like a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of coach. So they're going to keep the offense the same. The only other big weapon they have over there is Mike Thomas, who I know is going to take a lot of catches and a lot of touches. But Alvin Kamara out of the backfield next to Christian McCaffrey, maybe the best receiving back in the league.
Right,
He's
they're
great.
they're like so
They're so
similar.
similar.
They were taken in the same draft too,
Yeah.
as we learned last week.
Yeah.
I don't know, like Michael Thomas, he gets so many looks, and Drew Brees spreads the ball around so much that like it just worries me a little bit.
But even with that, I mean, even with the fact that you're very correct. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Brees finds a way to make Jared Cook in his old age very, very useful in that offense. But even with Drew Brees spreading the ball around so much, in the last 2 seasons, Alvin Kamara in 2017's rookie year, 81 catches, 826 yards, 5 receiving TDs. Last year, 81 catches, 709 yards, and 4 receiving TDs. Only Marcus Colston, former Saint, Juju Smith-Schuster, Christian McCaffrey, OBJ, Jarvis Landry, and then his teammate now, Michael Thomas. Those are the only players in NFL history to have more receptions in their first 2 seasons. Like, that is insane.
Dude,
it's such a pass-happy league now.
It is so sickening where a running back, I mean, there's multiple of them in the league where, like, they are easily the best receiver.
But he's only, on this list, he's only trailing, besides Christian McCaffrey, he's only trailing receivers. Not only that, he's only trailing the best receivers in the league.
Right, 2 of them were players who played with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
But James, let me ask you this. Are you a little nervous that Alvin Kamara is hurt right now?
A little bit. I mean, that.
And he's at both, but him and McCaffrey are like smaller type guys.
Right. And so, but there's not a whole lot of wear and tear on either of them. They've only been in the league 2 years.
No major injuries.
No major injuries. I mean, everyone's got little lingering this or that in camp.
I was just going to say, especially in camp, it's almost better that he gets hurt now. So even if it's a little industry.
If you're going to have to get it
right.
If you're going to have to get hurt, knock on wood.
Get it out of the way
If you're going to
now.
have to get hurt now, probably won't play in the preseason, so we don't have to worry about him getting hit. There's no real major concern that he's going to be out for the start of the regular season. Even if he is, maybe misses week 1. I'll take that L then on week 1 and be ready for the rest of the season.
Right.
So, last year, even still, some more Alvin Kamara stats. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry for the whole season last year. That's ranked highest among running backs with at least 300 touches last season. So, even still, if you think, maybe his load is going to be too much, he's used to being a little bit of a workhorse.
Also, if you look at, I saw a graph, if you look at yards per carry and then oppose it with first downs gained, he is number 1. He's number 1. So he's a great explosive play type guy. And in that offense, he's, as we said, get a cog in the machine.
Yeah, that is a machine of a Saints offense.
That's a big cog.
So efficient. They haven't ranked outside the top 12 in total offense since 2006, since Breeze and Peyton teamed up. So you're right. Go get Alvin Kamara. If you pick him, you have.
All right, guys. As much as I love football, I have gotten engraved into the NBA this year, and that has a lot to do with you too.
We remember.
Well, everybody knows my favorite team in Philadelphia is the 76ers. That being said, something very interesting happened with the 2K that's coming out. Recently, they are incorporating the 1980s to the 1990s, some of which players you can find in there are Jordan, Magic, Bird, Moses Malone, and McHale. The 1990s to the 2000s are including Stockton, Jordan, Pippen, Karl Malone, and Elijah Wan. The 90s to the 2000s, AI, Kobe, LeBron, Duncan, and Shaq. And the 2000s to the 2010s, which consists of Curry, Harden, LeBron, KD, and Dwight Howard. Which all-decade do we think is the best?
All right, and just to be clear, they are also doing the 50s, 60s, 70s. They've only released the 80s, 90s, 2000, and 2010s.
What's really the 80s and on is really the only ones that people really care about.
Right, well, basketball really sucked
relevant.
before then, as we've talked about at length. But pick a team. Go ahead and take. I'll give you the first pick.
You're giving me the first pick? Now, if we're doing this on, I don't know, my answer would probably be the same if we're doing this, picking 2K teams or picking teams in real life. I'm picking that 2000s team. So my team's going to be AI, Kobe, LeBron, Duncan, and Shaq, which, by the way, if you're asking me my all-time starting 5, favorite or best, kick out Kobe for Michael Jordan, and that's literally my all-time starting 5 right there.
It's pretty good.
That's a beast of a team. And from many 2K games that Shaq may be the most unstoppable player.
Me in my
my goodness. Like, that.
James and I, what was it, like 2K, like 17 or something? We used to play
17.
Blacktop, and James would pick the same team. We pretty much both would pick the same team every time.
Didn't really get tired of it either.
But it would just be me switching out who I would have defending Shaq.
You went through Will.
I went through half the legends.
You went through Will. You put KG at one point. I think Boogie was there. Duncan was there. Elijah
had their
Karl
crack.
Malone was there. Someone all had it. Wilt Chamberlain was only.
Wilt was the one
was the best one.
I don't even know. He didn't even best Shaq. He would just cancel out Shaq. Like, they would just equal Shaq.
Right.
But in terms of if I'm picking someone, I want to pick the 2010s, which is Curry, Harden, LeBron, KD, and Dwight Howard. But I can't leave Dwight Howard in there against Shaq. I've tried Dwight Howard against Shaq in 2K. I know how it goes.
Okay, but you've also tried Hakeem Olajuwon, and you haven't tried Moses Malone.
Yeah, Moses is also a little smaller. I'm probably going to go with the 90s, I think. Okay. Stockton, Jordan, Pippen, Karl Malone, and Hakeem Olajuwon. I love using Hakeem in 2K. He's a lot of fun to use as a big man. Pippen,
he can stretch Shaq out, too. Which,
Pippen, despite shooting under 30% from 3, is like an A+ 3 which doesn't make any sense.
That's deceptive because I also picked Pippen for those blacktop teams, and I've tried to kick it out to him on many times and shoot, and that A+ is very deceptive.
But Stockton, in terms of pure point, he's a great player. I don't know if we could stick AI.
AI's putting that man in a blender.
Who's sticking AI? Maybe I go with the 80s then, because the 80s, Magic is a better matchup because he's essentially
putting Magic
6'10".
in a blender. AI's putting Magic in a blender.
And Magic gobbles up AI on the other end.
For what?
Magic couldn't play defense. Iverson couldn't play defense except hooking the ball out.
That's what I'm saying.
I post him every time. What's Iverson? Like 6 foot in air quotes, 5'10" in reality.
You watch your mouth over there.
I'm just saying, I love AI, but I don't know. If you go and stretch back, like
you also named all 3 decades that I didn't name, so you're gonna have to pick one.
I'll go and commit hard to the 90s because I think between Jordan and Pippen, that's a good counter to Kobe and LeBron. Malone is a good counter to Duncan. Olajuwon is about equal to Shaq. And in terms of like greatness level, like they're all kind of about the same. Maybe some are higher than others, but they're all around the same area.
I'm shocked you're not honing in on the 80s more, to be honest with you.
You like the 80s?
No. Well, I would honestly go with the 2000s, but I was torn between the 2000s and the 80s.
The only reason why I don't like the 80s is because Kevin McHale's in there. Not because he's a
Right,
bad player, it's
first
because he's
off,
getting dominated by
You get victimized by one of the biggest.
Victimized by either Karl Malone or Olajuwon or Duncan Shaq.
But the 2010s is very interesting. It's like, if you want to run that up-tempo style of basketball, you have Curry, Harden, LeBron, and KD running the floor with Dwight as like a rim running big. Granted, on defense, you want him to be like the all-in-all, rim protector, which he just can't be. But,
right, I mean, but in real life, that 2010s team, I don't see how they would actually really work together. Because LeBron is you're going to take the ball out of LeBron's hands. LeBron is going to want to be the point forward on that team. KD's already willing to take a step back. We know that. But when it comes down to it, you have ball-dominant players like LeBron, Curry, and Harden. And I see that clashing.
I mean, and to your point, basketball now is different than basketball was.
Way different.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Rules, technology, medicine, health, like everything. You got to take that into account.
Right.
3-point shot.
Three-point shot, yeah. It's so different. So we look at these all-decade teams, right? Were there any snubs? There were snubs. Like, who were the
I would say there's some snubs.
Because people were really griping about Dwight Howard being on that 2010
Yeah, like maybe
team.
you put Anthony Davis in there. It's interesting. Dwight his peak was like between like 2007 to 2011. He had like some solid seasons on either end of that, but like
similar to Chris Paul's career arc.
Right,
too.
Chris Paul had a
He's
very
not on
similar
anymore.
career arc when you like.
Chris Paul got drafted in 2007, though. That's hard to like.
Right,
It's
it's
the
and
very
that's the
end
thing
of
is like
one
the
decade.
timeline. Like 80 played 7 seasons. He averaged 23.7, 10.5 rebounds on 58% or 58.5% true shooting, 72 win shares. Like great player. Dwight in the 10 seasons that fall under that are 17.4 and 12.7 rebounds on 60% true shooting with 76.7 win shares. Remember, Dwight was like he drugged that Magic team to the finals.
Knocked LeBron out the playoffs.
Which is really crazy to think about how good Dwight Howard was back in the day.
And that's why I don't understand the Dwight Howard. Like, it's a bunch
That
of.
wasn't this decade. That was the previous.
That's
Right.
true. That is the previous decade. What was that? 09, 09. But even still, it's the very end of that last decade, and it just speaks to the point that Dwight Howard was dominant. And I think there's a lot of recency bias, especially when you go on like NBA Twitter and stuff. When people saw this team, they're like, Dwight Howard. People gave like the Soldier Boy emoji.
Right.
Dwight Howard, like
No, but he was a beast.
He
back
was
then.
a beast. Like people like don't let goofy recent Dwight Howard like make you forget about the dominance that Dwight Howard was at one point in his career.
And his wingspan's twice the size of me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Keep that in mind.
Stat of the week. Dwight Howard's wingspan is twice the size of Jewel. There you go.
Right.
Keep that
I mean,
in the bank.
look at these career accolades: 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA first team, 1 time he was on All-NBA second team, 1 time he was on the third team, 3-time All-Defensive first team, 3-time top 10 in MVP voting. Like for a lot, we're gonna look at Dwight Howard in 15 to 20 years when he's going into Springfield as a Hall of Famer, and we're gonna realize that dude was dominant.
And by the way, those numbers are just in the 2010s. But I think that if you're looking at this possible snubs, that's probably the strongest one. You also have Barkley, probably should have been an over Pippen, but obviously the roadblock there is that Charles Barkley does not let 2K use his likeness or name, so it'd be kind of hard to to put him in the game. I think the only time he was in the game was for the Dream Team in 2013. But like, I don't know, there are some other ones. I don't know. Was there any other ones that you saw?
I mean, I'm torn because AI is one of my all-time favorite players, of course. But if you're looking to really who probably could have or should have been in that 2000s all-decade team, you probably could have put Steve Nash in there. That's a 2-time MVP right there. The only difference is Steve Nash didn't drag a terrible team to the finals and win a game in LA.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And AI is just so iconic.
Right. And I think it was more of influence, more icon than performance on the court. Like, you don't think of 2000s
what's the
basketball
ratings in 2K? AI might have had a higher rating in most
right,
of those years.
More skilled, you know what I mean?
Right.
"Quote unquote" skilled as a basketball player. Has better handles. He's faster. Can jump higher. Like he's
Nash
more.
was just
Nash
a
was
bit more productive.
Was
right.
just a modern day Stockton. Could just do everything at a very, very fundamental level. Well, if we break it down by stats here. Nash in the 2000s, 17.7 per game, 10.2 assists on 61% true shooting, 102 win shares though, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA first team, 2-time MVP, 4 times in the top 10 in MVP voting. Allen Iverson in the 2000s, we talk about stats, here we go. 28 points per game, 6 assists, 52% true shooting on 81 win shares, 10-time All-Star. Yeah, dude, 10-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA first team, 3-time second team, 1 MVP, and 6 times the top MVP in voting. So it's really like one or the other. And
right.
I think what made AI go in there is he's more, people in 50 years, probably more people will know who AI is in basketball maybe than Steve Nash.
Yep.
And that's really what it boils down to.
All right, guys, let's combine sports and pop culture in crossover. I guess I'll hit it off.
Go first.
I'm going to start with the popular topic at the moment, which is Antonio Brown.
Of course.
I am going to compare Antonio Brown. I'm going to ask you boys something first. Have you seen War of the Worlds?
Yeah.
Dakota Fanning in
I have not.
War of the Worlds. Okay, well, think of a very tiny, young Dakota Fanning. I don't even see her in too many movies anymore. Maybe it's because I don't pay attention. Maybe it's
like kids movies back in the day.
right. The most recent one I think is the Twilight movies, but whatever. Who cares? The point of that is she does nothing in the movie but scream and cry. She can't keep up. It's annoying. It's exactly what he's doing. Look, both of these situations to me are very sink or swim mentality. Bitch, I'm leaving your ass behind if you can't keep up. I'm getting out of there. I am getting out of there.
I'm going to fire up Joel. This is the Ben Simmons point all over
Antonio
again.
Brown is not collaborative, and he needs to be able to sink. He's going to either sink or swim with the team.
Okay.
So, Jewel, let me ask you a question. When War of Worlds happens, you're chunking your kid like, look, man, sorry, you're dead weight. I gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta get out of there.
Brown?
You're too much weight for me.
I know.
Look.
Can't chunk him for sinners.
Listen,
Can't chunk the kid.
I'd carry the kid if the kid was valuable to me.
You gotta explain the premise of the movie. Why are we chucking kids? Who chucks their kid?
I'm gonna
in
be
any
a good
situation?
mommy.
Who wants to chunk the kid? I don't know.
Like, why are we chucking kids
I'm gonna
in any
be a great
situation? I
mommy.
don't get. Does Dakota answer me this question? At the end of the movie, does Dakota Fanning help the situation or does she hurt the situation?
Yeah, she distracts the aliens from her screams, so I suppose she's a little useful.
Okay, so Antonio Brown may be distracting other people by his screams, and I don't know, maybe they get it done. I'm trying to have his back here. I'm like the only person who's trying to have his back, being John Gruden.
He is a child, though. For mine, one of my favorite players recently, non-Eagle favorite player, would have to be Quinnen Williams, who just got drafted third.
Young money signing right there.
That kid is freaking hilarious. Like,
He's
from
got
the
braces.
get-go, he has braces. Like, he has really, really, like, a heavy Southern drawl, like, almost like broken English. But to that point, he reminds me of Fez from That's So 70 Show.
From That 70 Show?
He has, like, partially broken English. He has hilarious one-liners, and, like, his childish nature kind of endears you to the character. Like, there's something, like, he sneezed on the red carpet and blessed himself and then said thank you to himself. There's, like, it's like we're playing that. It's like he said something to the effect of, yeah, it's like we're out here playing Madden, but we're in Madden. And then he had other quotes like, yeah, I'm going to have to go home and I'm going to play with myself. Talking about Madden. He's like, wait, that kind of came off kind of weird.
Well, you gotta
it's a very Fez-ish quote.
And I'm watching that 70 show right now, like real time, which is hilarious that you bring that up. And that's the most Fez quote. Fez always has those little perverted quotes. But it's hilarious because you got to remember this kid is still like 18, 19, 20
Young
years
kid.
old. Like, they're so young.
He's
He got
huge, but
braces.
he's young.
Like, that's funny. That's a good one, dude. Fez is by far, like, going back and watching that 70s show, like, Fez cracks me up, dude. Fez is hilarious. Mine, we're all football in this one. So I'm going to stay on brand and stay with football. I'm going to go Jerry Jones, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to equate money-hungry, greedy Jerry Jones to one of my favorite money-hungry and greedy characters, and that's Mr. Krabs
Bam.
off SpongeBob.
Nice.
Hit it perfectly.
That's
Look,
on the head.
That really is on the head. Look, they're both, like I said, very rich and tycoons, but they're both so cheap, right? They both don't want to pay their employees, who probably deserve, maybe not Dak, but Zeke at least probably deserves what he's asking for. He has the most profitable business in the NFL. Mr. Krabs has the most profitable business in Bikini Bottom, in the ocean. They're just very synonymous, and they're both very old and wrinkly and crabby.
And they probably have weird laughs. I've never heard Jerry Jones laugh, but I have to imagine it's pretty weird.
I have to imagine it sounds something like Mr. Krabs.
Can you do that one more time?
Ready? That's what he sounds like, right? That's his laugh.
That's
All
Jerry
right,
Jones'
guys.
laugh.
We're going to head into the countdown. Number 5.
The second likeliest spot to win you a championship in fantasy in both 10-team and 12-team drafts, according to Sleeper.
You're going to have to explain that one to me.
Yeah, so essentially, out of all the teams that won their draft, the team that was the second likeliest was the 5th spot. So, number 1, the teams who drafted number 1 won the championship the most times.
Right.
That makes sense. But then, to me, it's a little surprising that number 5 was the second likeliest to win your championship. And this is according to the new app, Sleeper. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a great tool for fantasy. But that was shocking because I was talking to my dad when we were going to our league meeting. I hate picking number 5. I hate it.
Why?
It's just because you're in the middle. So, like, in a snake draft, when it comes around, you never get 2 picks that are close to each other, which I guess in the end it doesn't really matter. Clearly, it almost benefits you.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't like not being able to really plan out because there's always 10 picks in between your first pick and second pick and third pick. There's
Right.
always 10 picks in between where if you're 1, you get that little wraparound when you go boom, boom. I don't know. It's just preference.
Yeah, that's true.
Number 4.
Number 4 is for the number of UEFA Super Cups Liverpool now has after beating Chelsea in like the first game of the season of the new soccer season. They're laid out. Look, Liverpool came out last year, kind of stunned a lot of people. Beat Barcelona in the Champions League, claimed a Champions League Cup. Now it claimed a Super Cup, which is like the kickoff to the European soccer season. Look, that's a very good team. Looks like Mo Salah might repeat as one of the best players in Europe again. So we'll see what they do.
I did not even know until probably like 50 to an hour ago that the Super Cup was between the UEFA Cup and the
You
Champions
didn't even have
League.
to admit that. You could have saved face.
Well, I'm not, it's straight facts, bro. I'm going to give you straight facts. I had no clue what this was. However,
Joe just rolled her eyes.
I do like Liverpool. I don't really have like one team that I follow in the Premier League, but like Liverpool owned by LeBron, you know how I feel about LeBron, so Liverpool gets a check mark in my book.
Good
so
point.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Times a team had less than 43 points in the NFL preseason and made the playoffs, none have won a playoff game. When you score under 43 points in one preseason, I don't know how much the preseason matters, but when it's stats like that kind of make you think maybe this stuff does matter in some aspect. I don't know.
I go back and forth on it matters for some things and it really does not matter for a whole bunch of other things. This makes me think that it does matter. I wonder who those 3 teams are because that's a very interesting stat. But look, I'm still going to go on the side of that the preseason does matter. The NFL can do some things to mend it and make it a little bit shorter and not make it as drawn out. But it does matter in some capacity.
Number 2.
Number 2 is for the number of records Simone Biles just broke this past weekend at the U.S. Gymnastic Championships. She's the first woman to land a double.
Why are you laughing?
No, it's just so stupid about how good it was. You don't have to look at me.
Matt was stupefied by how incredible Simone Biles is.
You didn't even say what she did.
I didn't say anything. Jules said it.
Crack it up back here.
Let me tell you what she did so Matt can gaze in awe again one more time. Okay, so she's the first woman to land a double-double double dismount, which I can't even really explain to you what it is, but it's on the little balance beam, and it's this crazy move that she flips 9,000 times in the air and lands back on the
way you're
balance
describing this is so funny.
And also the first woman to land a triple double in competition. I know what that is. That's on the floor routine. That's 3 rotations and 2 flips in the air and 1 jump. Like, you have to see her complete this move. It's insane, and she like sticks it. She lands, sticks it, puts her hands up in the air like it was effortless to her. It was insane. I was watching.
So
this.
not 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, different triple-double?
Different triple-double than we're used to, but she's the first one to do that. Many people have done
That's
it.
amazing.
You have
That's
no
amazing.
idea what you're talking about. It's so funny.
Zero clue what I'm talking about. All I know is I saw this video of Simone Biles. It blew my freaking mind, and I had to talk
awesome.
about it.
All right, guys, bring it down to number 1.
So Magic Johnson released on Twitter a top 60 list of his top female R&B artists. Number 1 was Aretha Franklin. What is notable, I don't really have a problem with him putting Aretha Franklin number 1.
I don't either.
What I do find funny is after his top 5, which he probably did have a top 5, he
There's
then alphabetically
alphabetical order.
listed. The rest of the people are alphabetically listed.
Oh, dude,
He probably
Magic
got to
Johnson.
5 and said,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anybody else.
I gotta go 55 more, huh?
Right.
Let me just Google R&B female artists and
Copy and paste, yep. Dude, Magic Johnson gets funnier and funnier by the minute.
He is funny, man.
It's also his birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Magic
birthday,
Johnson.
Magic.
Happy
I know
birthday,
you won't
Magic.
hear this,
Your
but-
list makes no sense. I'm gonna wonder where people like Beyonce are, Whitney Houston.
Top five. All
All
Aretha
top
Franklin,
5.
top 5. Yeah,
That's cool. He's cool with Aretha Franklin number 1. Patti LaBelle also should be up there. A lot of people who should be up there. I may not put Aretha Franklin 1. I haven't listened to many of what she said. I'll probably go Whitney Houston then Beyonce, but that's just me. I'm not Magic. We're almost out of time, but we can get some shots up at the buzzer. Julie, have anything to say at the buzzer?
I do, with you leaving it off with Beyonce. I am going to bring up, don't know if y'all heard yet, the NFL is partnering with Jay-Z and Rock Nation
You stole my
to
at the
change
buzzer.
football forever.
How do
Look,
you feel about this?
I feel good because I love my man Jay-Z. This will give Jay-Z autonomy over events like the Super Bowl halftime show, but more importantly, a say in the next chapter of the league.
Talk to him.
What do we think? I'm hype about
That's beautiful. And, I mean, there are a couple players who came out and still weren't happy about it. Eric Reed actually was not happy about this because he's saying that it's putting kind of a blanket over what the NFL is doing and not, helping social justice reform and, kind of saying the NFL is kind of like, here's what we're doing to help it and not actually enacting change and trying to help their players because his comment was, this does nothing if the NFL is still blackballing Colin Kaepernick. But Jay-Z is very out and open on saying that Colin Kaepernick needs a job, so hopefully this kind of steers it towards Colin Kaepernick getting, his job or not being blackballed by the NFL.
With Eric Reed and Colin Kaepernick. He came out and said, look, I'll take the vet minimum on a 1-year deal to prove myself, and then I'm going to be valued at what I think I'm valued at. I guarantee you he would have a job.
So you think he's asking for, a starter salary?
Yes. Why wouldn't he have a job, dude?
After
After
being
all this
blackballed.
stuff, come on. Jeffrey Lord, there's a bunch of owners who are known. Robert Kraft got Meek Mill out of jail. I think there are some very progressive owners out there that would love to have Colin Kaepernick. It's just that he's asking for starter salary after being 3 years out of the year.
Missed the playoffs because they decided Josh Johnson would be a better option.
Yeah,
There's no other option.
It's either that, it's either you don't want to pay him a starter salary, that's what he's asking for, or you just don't want all the media and extra stuff and extra exposure that comes with putting Colin Kaepernick on your team.
They settled the suit and they gave Kaepernick money in the blackball suit.
They did.
Right. So there was a...
And now he has his own, Nike's paying him now, he has his own Nike campaign, so Colin Kaepernick's getting money, but still bringing Colin Kaepernick on your team brings distractions and extra attention that people may not want. So I'm going to piggyback off of Jules at the buzzer and talk about just Jay-Z as a whole. Like, this is what it looks like when you use your money and influence for good. Like, Jay-Z is the first billionaire rapper in history, is one of the most influential people in the world, and only uses it to really enact change that he truly believes in. And if there's up-and-coming rappers, up-and-coming artists, anyone who's up-and-coming who has a lot of money is finding themselves in a place of influence, you may want to take a page out of Jay-Z's book, because ever since he's been in the crazy limelight, all he has done is positive things. Look, he's paid Lil Wayne's taxes. He got helped Meek Mill fight social justice reform. He got 21 Savage out of jail. He got A$AP Rocky out of jail, which are all things. He didn't get people out of jail who shouldn't have been in jail. He went and got them for unlawful things they shouldn't have been thrown in jail for.
Not to mention he recycles his money, he disperses his money all the time.
Him and Will Smith just invested in a brand new startup company. I forget exactly what it is, but they just, like you said, recycling his money. Like Jay-Z is just a mogul upon mogul upon mogul, and that's just what it looks like when you have a bunch of money and influence and you use it positively. Like, Jay-Z, keep doing what you're doing. That's Uncle Hove right there.
He put it best. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business, man.
Talk to him. That's a bar. Talk to him.
Absolutely. Only thing I have to say is with the NBA schedule being released, I cannot wait for the NBA season. There's going to be so many great games. There's going to be so many great Sixers games they open the season against our hated rivals. The Celtics going to stomp them. But I just can't wait for that, man.
I mean, I guess I'm a Thunder fan. Chris Paul looks like he's going to start the season on the Thunder. Woohoo!
Do you feel cornered now that we're bringing up the Sixers again? For the millionth time in every single episode?
No, because I'm not fighting them right now. Once I inevitably say one objective point that doesn't agree with something great that the Sixers are doing, then all you two, and even Matt sometimes, will jump on me. So I'll prepare for that once October, November, through March hits. But for right now, let me focus on the fact that I'm down in Oklahoma City with a miserable Chris Paul, and we have to go play some NBA games. But that's all the time we have for this episode. It was a great one. Big ups to Kyle Sobieski, Greg Barron, and Stat Matt Robinson behind the camera. From my partner, Joel Schmitz.
It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun.
To my main man's Jake Galley, I'm James Jackson, and these have been the facts.
Straight up.